Alrighty, everybody, good evening, and we are here with an absolute gem of a classic, Ratchet and Clank 2. Hope you're all doing well. Sorry for the late start tonight, my friends. However, I had a meeting. I mentioned this in my Discord server. I had a meeting this afternoon for a project that I'm helping to run and organize for this year. As one of those things where it's a potential, future career thing. So, what we're going to do is, will we bother to do
gentlemen, tell us about your latest incredible
the cutscenes?
adventures.
First of all,
well,
I
as you can imagine,
probably
we've been pretty busy. After Drek's defeat, there were parades,
need
press
to lower the
conferences,
volume.
fancy dress
That's
balls.
for absolute
house.
definite is what I need to do.
And then things started to slow
Because
down.
that's a little too loud, just a bit.
Well,
There was the grand opening at Groovy Lube
right. I think that was last week.
6 months ago.
We're still pretty busy, but in a more, domestic sense.
Yesterday, I flushed out my radiator core.
I guess no one needs a hero right now.
Miss Littlebottom, I found our man.
Hopefully, see, the problem is the cutscenes are quite loud in comparison to the gameplay, I think.
Welcome.
What the...
I'm Abercrombie Fizzwidget, founder of the Megacorp Company in the Bogon Galaxy.
Bogon?
I'm sorry to incapacitate you, but our entire galaxy is in a very precocious situation.
Wow, I really need to lower it quite a bit, don't I? Holy crap.
Dire urgitude, a mission of superfluous peril, a mission of unequivocal imperitude.
Did that make
It's
any
really
sense?
loud.
So, you need me to go on a dangerous mission in another galaxy.
Alright, that should be enough. So yeah, I'm going to talk over cutscenes. This game is now... Jesus, how old is this game? It is 2003, so it's 16 years old. It's 16 years old, so if you have not seen the cutscenes for this game, then I can't really help you at that point. But this game, absolute gem of a classic game. If you have not yet played it, if you're younger than me, or weren't around, or maybe you're a bit too young to play this game, please do go pick it up if you happen to have a PS3 or a PS2, or even have a PC that's decent enough to run PCSX2. I highly recommend you go check out this game. It is an absolute gem of a game. That being said, I do prefer Ratchet and Clank 1. But Ratchet and Clank 2 is still a great game, still an absolute gem of a classic, and we are going to be doing a full gameplay series of this game from start to finish over the next... I don't know how many days it'll take us to do. I'm pretty quick when it comes to Ratchet and Clank games these days. I do not take that long to finish them. So yeah, we'll just have to wait and see and kind of go along as we go.
Ratchet reporting. I'm on final approach to coordinates 37 Alpha.
Good luck. I'm counting on you.
Yeah, we'll just have to...
Beginning radio silence.
Yeah, just wait and see as we go, and hopefully you guys will enjoy it. And, yeah, right, let's... Oh, wait, hold on. Oh, God, controls. I need to invert the controls. No, camera controls. The left, right, reversed. That's better. Up and down's fine, but left and right was bad. Ooh. My thumbsticks are a little sticky, but that's alright. Alright, here we go. Oh yeah, now I gotta remember the control scheme of this game because it's a little clunky. Just slightly clunky. Not too terrible, but just slightly clunky. Alright, there we go. Perfect. Awesome. Right. So yeah, so we're going to be doing a full gameplay series of this game from beginning to end. And yeah, this is a game I've been wanting to stream for a while. But it's one of those ones where you don't really know necessarily whether or not people will actually like it. And I mean, for me, it's an absolute gem of a game. I love this game. But initially, fun fact about Ratchet & Clank 2, I did not like it when I first played it. I was not a fan of Ratchet & Clank 2 originally. I was a big fan of the first one. I was a big fan of number 3 and a massive fan of Deadlocked, but I was not a fan of number 2. And I think it has to do a lot with the fact that in order to really get the most out of the game, you need to get the most powerful weapons as you go. The weapons really in this game become incredibly ineffective the further on you go. So right now we're starting with the Lancer and the Gravity Bomb. Both these guns, by the time we get to midway through the game, 3/4 of the way through the game, become completely ineffective. They're not that strong, even if you upgrade them. And the caveat, obviously, of course, to that is that you need money, because a lot of these guns are quite expensive. So you do need to do a lot of the arena challenges and the hover bike races in order to get the funds. So, a little sip of water.
Whoa, no, hey, no, look, I'm just here to fix the transflexor coil.
Yeah, but I'm sure most of you, who have played this game before probably know that. So there's no need for me to really repeat old ground for those who have long enjoyed this game. It's a lot of fun. And is a game that, much like the original Halo, I try to revisit the original Ratchet and Clank trilogy, once every year, maybe once every couple years. Unlike the original Halo, which I probably play through at least once, 2 times a year. I always like to come back to the original Ratchet and Clank trilogy at least once every couple of years, because there is something just really magical about the original games. Skip that cutscene. Don't really need to worry about it. Pointless exposition for a game that, is now 16 years old. But for those of you who do want to know what that cutscene basically entails, the thief of the prototype basically gets thugs for less to meet him on a particular planet, or a particular set of coordinates is the long and short of it, basically. See, one of the funny things I was thinking to myself is, obviously I've been mentioning, if you're a returning viewer, that I am going to Japan at the beginning of next year in February, and one of the things I'm going to try and look out for is Japanese copies of all the Ratchet and Clank games. And I'm going to challenge myself when I get back to play the very original Ratchet and Clank entirely in Japanese, because I've got a sneaking suspicion, with the familiarity I have for that original game, that I will be able to absolutely and utterly finish that game whilst playing in Japanese. I don't have any doubt of my ability to be able to play that game in its entirety in Japanese. Now, whether or not that speaks to my skill, in terms of how well I know that game, or the fact that I've just gotten that game imprinted in my memory, like a stamp.
Ratchet checking in, sir.
So yeah, the funny thing about, so we're playing this on a PlayStation 3, where's the case? Here it is. Ratchet and Clank Trilogy. We're playing it through the PS3 Ratchet and Clank Trilogy, so obviously we're playing it in some level of HD. It's not a full form of HD, even though this is supposed to be technically playing at 1080p. It is. But yeah, so these games are fun, man. They're just fun. And you can't not like them. You know, you can't not like playing these games and watching them as well. I see. Here's an interesting story that I've mentioned before, but it seems appropriate now to tell, since we're playing a Ratchet and Clank game. One of the first times that I kind of realized that, oh, hey, you know, I could have people watch me play games and enjoy it, was I was in Australia. My aunt and my cousin live in Australia. And my cousin's actually been in the chat room, my younger cousin at least, has been on the chat room on a couple of these streams before. If you remember, a while ago, he was the one who helped me locate and procure a copy of an old, a very old PC game from my childhood, called The Magical Movie Adventure, which is a game that I had not played in years. I had trouble finding. But anyway, that's got nothing to do with the story. I just thought I'd tell that little anecdote. So, an anecdote in the middle of an anecdote. Beautiful. So anyway, we're in Australia, and we used to go to this pub for dinner every once in a while. They live in a small town called Sanford. And we used to go to this small little pub. And in that pub, and this was well into the days of PS3s at this point. And one thing I've noticed, actually, now that I think about it, because I've been to a few of these pubs in Australia, is that quite a few of them had game consoles in the premises for kids. Because obviously, if you're an adult, you're not gonna really play video games whilst you're out for dinner, especially if you're with other adults, right? So it's mainly to keep the kids entertained. If you're an adult, you want to go play video games, you know, you just go play them when you get home, right? So anyway, we're in this pub, and we're waiting for the food, and out the back of the pub was kind of like a kids play area. I think I was probably 12 at the time, but they had a little building, a little room full of PS2s and a few screens, and on one of those screens was a copy of Ratchet and Clank 3. So I sat there and I played Ratchet and Clank 3 for about, I want to say, half an hour, 45 minutes whilst we were waiting for our food. And I sort of sat down and I started playing and I started a new game. And then about 20 minutes later, I had this group of kids behind me watching me play the game, just in awe at how good I was at Ratchet and Clank 3. And that was one of the first moments when I kind of realized to myself, okay, I seem to be good enough and interesting enough to, you know, sit there and play games with these kids. And in the same way that, you know, streaming, they were asking me questions and I was answering. It was a real life live stream in a sense, and that was the first time I really realized that, oh, okay, I could actually, that was probably the spark that made me go, okay, I actually kind of want to foray into this. Unfortunately, it took me many, many years to get to that point because of the money that is required in order to get started. You know, it's not cheap, you know. When you think about it, you've got capture card and you've got webcam and you've got consoles or a PC, and then of course you need a decent PC that is capable of both, you know, maybe playing games or streaming at the same time. So, you know, but it was quite cool. I always reflect fondly on that story as probably the genesis of what made me decide to start streaming. So, knowing me, I'll just be able to blast through this game really quickly. The only thing that will probably take us a little bit of time is stuff like the arena challenges and the hoverbike races. That'll probably take us a little bit of time. I didn't put subtitles on. Oh! No, we don't. Huh! So subtitles aren't an option.
Thank you, sir.
The track
Intriguing. I mean, it's not surprising. I'm pretty sure. I don't know why they didn't do subtitles in the collection for this game. Makes no sense. Makes no sense. Because I don't know about you guys, but I'm a big fan of playing games with subtitles on. Not because I can't hear, but just because I've gotten used to playing with the subtitles on. And I kind of feel it's default now. I also think it helps in situations like this when, you know, you're streaming and maybe you're talking over cutscenes. People still want to understand what's going on. They can read the subtitles, but I think another reason that I like doing it is because I'm sure, like a lot of you these days, I don't tend to game in isolation. And what I mean by that is I don't tend to just game. When I'm gaming, I tend to be watching YouTube or listening to music, and it's nice to have the subtitles on. Even though by this point I don't really need to know what's being said in this game because I know exactly what happens. And for those of you who did want to know what happened in that cutscene, overdramatic salesman tries to sell Ratchet the tractor beam in the typical salesman way, you know. Overselling it, making it out to be a bigger deal than what it is. I haven't even used that was the first time I used the gravity bomb in this playthrough. Usually I'm much more on it and using it, but we will probably use it quite extensively in a little bit here. Also, for some reason, I don't know why, I'm defaulting to the triggers. Oh, he's dead. I'm defaulting to the triggers for my hyper throw. What is it? What's the move called? It's Hyper Strike. No, Comet Strike. Yeah, Hyper Strike and Comet Strike. You can never save him. I've tried to save that scientist before, and every time you're never able to save him. You're just not. Which is really annoying because I really wish you could. But I've tried, and you really can't. Right? Aye. So, how's everybody doing in the chat today? Hope you're all doing well. I had as I mentioned, had a fairly productive day. Was at work till 1:15. Then had a meeting in Auckland City for about 2 hours. Came home, had a family dinner. Which is why, by the way, I didn't stream straight away when I got home, because obviously my new schedule, 3 PM New Zealand time, got home at about 4. Could have streamed then, but there was just really no point because I knew that I had family coming over and it probably would have only been an hour stream-ish. Yeah, would have probably only been about an hour stream. Tonight's stream will probably only be an hour and a half anyway, just because of, you know, the lateness of the stream and all that. Was hoping to, at the moment I'm playing Kingdom Hearts 3 in my spare time, and I've just gotten to the Toy Story world, which is hilarious. Those games, man, every time they get me. Playing against, you know, or playing not against, but playing with characters like Woody and Buzz Lightyear from Toy Story is hilarious. It's so cool though. However, I will say this: I'm not looking forward to Frozen. There's a Frozen world in Kingdom Hearts 3, which alienates me to no end. But unfortunately, I don't really have a choice. So I will not be looking forward to that world. I think there's also a Tangled world, which I'm not overly keen about, but I will say, not a lot of the new worlds they've added I'm overly keen about, apart from Toy Story and Monsters, Inc. That'll be dope. And there is Pirates of the Caribbean in the game, continuing on from Kingdom Hearts 2, which I'm pretty excited about. Already gone through Hercules and all that. But what I was hoping was that Kingdom Hearts 3 would explain the story of Kingdom Hearts 2 in some way, because I played through Kingdom Hearts 1, completely understood that story, got to Kingdom Hearts 2 and didn't know what the fuck was going on. Could not figure out the story in Kingdom Hearts 2 for the life of me. All I know, Organization 13, and that's about it. And I think the thing that kept me playing Kingdom Hearts 2 wasn't the main storyline, but was all the, you know, all the small sub-storylines in each of the worlds. So used to using that trigger as the trigger, but it's, of course, in this game it's not. The first two have got such an archaic control scheme compared to the other games in the series. That being said, of course, you go and play the most recent entries and, you know, you can map
to center the camera, tap L1.
You can map the controller to have the old style control schemes, which is hilarious, because I'm not saying that the control scheme of the original Ratchet and Clank is terrible by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think it is at all. It's definitely different compared to every other entry. But, and I suppose also for me, it's probably that I've played the original Ratchet and Clank so many times. That's my, what's funny is most people rate, you know, probably Ratchet and Clank 3 as their favorite. I think there's a general consensus with a lot of the Ratchet and Clank fans that I've talked to that, you know, Ratchet and Clank 3 was their favorite. And I love Ratchet and Clank 3. I think it's great. It's definitely one of my favorites. I agree with the consensus that the PS2 versions of Ratchet and Clank are better than the PS3 versions, just in terms of story. Also in terms of variety, I think the PS3 versions of Ratchet and Clank, and by the way, I still love the PS3 versions of Ratchet and Clank. I actually recently did a full playthrough of Crack in Time and really enjoyed my time with it. You know, sat down and spent an entire day just going through and doing a playthrough of Crack in Time, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. But
Ratchet, come in.
I absolutely 100% thoroughly think
Listen, I have some
that
information on our experiment's wherewithal.
Ratchet and Clank was at its peak on PlayStation 2.
Also, the thugs have towed a
It's absolutely at its peak on PlayStation 2. And
Should I take it out?
whilst
It's disconfabulating our annual galactic
the PS3 games look fantastic, they play fantastically, have great storylines,
Ask yourself, are you man enough, hero enough,
introduce some great characters in the form of Alistair Azimuth and Ratchet's girlfriend, what's-her-face,
Because Megacorp's bringing galactic gladiators to your home for a special Mega View event. First, it's survival of the fittest.
Talwyn.
Bio competition.
Um,
There, as Chainblade. Chainblade unleashes his fury on our gladiator guest contestants.
you know,
Chainblade has gone
did introduce some absolutely great characters
but if the bio
in
division doesn't do
the
it
future
for you,
games.
our robotics division will. Taste the adrenaline as contestants
But
face off against our four-armed bandit.
I think the general consensus is, and I think you can absolutely make the argument for, well, I don't really even think there's much of an argument. I think most people, Ratchet and Clank fans who you talk to, will say that the original 4 on PlayStation 2, because of course PlayStation 2 did get Size Matters and Secret Agent Clank, which are great games in their own right, but they're better on PSP. They're not. I haven't played the PS2 versions though, personally, so I can't really judge the PS2 versions of those respective games. But I do know that they are not as well looked upon as the other Ratchet and Clank PS2 entries. But for me, it goes Ratchet Deadlocked, the original Ratchet and Clank, Ratchet and Clank 3, and then after that, I don't know. I haven't really thought about my ranking after those three. And I think mainly it's because I do have a very high affinity for the PS3 entries, including All for One. I actually think that game's good. Q-Force or Full Frontal Assault, hit or miss. For me, Q-Force is a bit hit or miss. But, and then of course the PS4 version, fantastic game. Yeah, the PS4 version of Ratchet and Clank, fantastic game.
You've just collected Raritanium.
But yeah, I think general consensus is that the ones on the PS2 were the best. But after you know, Deadlocked, the original, and Ratchet and Clank 3, I don't know which is my next favorite. I think it's easy to say Ratchet and Clank 2, but I don't know if I would put Ratchet and Clank 2. Because for years, Ratchet and Clank 2 was not my favorite. In fact, it was probably my most hated Ratchet and Clank game. But it wasn't until I played the game properly and really got an understanding and a love for it and learnt the proper way to play it, you know, and that you have to do the arena challenges and that you have to do the hover bike races and that you need to get as much money as possible. My love for Ratchet and Clank 2 really blossomed. I also have this innate ability. My cousin gets really annoyed at me because we're both massive Ratchet and Clank fans. He gets annoyed at me because I have this innate ability to just gain bolts like a madman. Without really doing an awful lot, I just happen to get so many bolts. I was playing a playthrough. Whoops. Whoopsie daisies. Shaky, shaky. Sorry about that. Picked my desk. My throat's feeling quite dry. I'm talking a lot, but that's good. He always gets annoyed because I seem to have this innate ability to really get as many bolts as possible in these Ratchet and Clank games without really trying. And I don't know what it is. I think it's just I tend to be very thorough with collecting and picking up bolts. And the way that I go about picking up bolts, I just make sure that I get every single one. And it's not necessarily a case of destroying everything in the map, it's just a case of picking up as many as possible. I definitely think destroying things on the map absolutely helps, but I mean, otherwise, oh, I'm using the wrong gadget. Oh, hello, mate. Where are you? Here we go. Okay, now we gotta use this bomb, blow shit up. Using Y, move out the way, people. Good timing. turn Ratchet round. See, in this game, you gotta auto-strafe like a bitch. You just have to auto-strafe all the time. No built-in, no automatic strafing, so you gotta auto-strafe all the time. But you also gotta get your angles and your pullback exactly right. Because otherwise, he don't go up there. Oh! He was literally there. All he had to do was walk the other way and he would have unlocked the door for me. Thank you. Yes, run away. Now, there is a trophy in the PS3 version of this game. For those of you who have the PS3 version, there is a trophy that if you manage to get 10 jackpots in a row, it's a skill point as well, I think. But you have to get monetary jackpots or something like that. There's like a full-on jackpot where you get like 500 bolts or something. But the odds of you hitting that are very low because, of course, one of the outcomes is 3 dynamite crates. And of course, if you get the 3 dynamite crates, the machine blows up. So that's always a lot of fun. Right, tractor beam. I'm going to do this quickly because it explodes. Obviously, it's a bomb. Beautiful. Fabulous. Right. Right on target. At this point, it's just funny how... Oops, that was a little too far. It's funny how I don't play this game for however long, and it all just comes back to me so easily. That was on target, but too low. Apparently. There we go. I don't think I've played Ratchet and Clank 2 since I platinumed it on Vita. Because, of course, if you do happen to own a Vita, you can get the Ratchet and Clank collection on Vita. It runs flawlessly, by the way, so I highly recommend... I think I've still got my Vita copy of it. Where are my glasses? I can't see from here. Yes, I do. And the Vita version works flawlessly. If you were disappointed in the fact that the Jak and Daxter collection does not run very well on Vita. If you... it does not run very well at all. Very framey. Not very smooth. I think it's like 30 frames a second, but it struggles to keep that.
To disable the jamming array, destroy the 6 transponders.
Whereas the Sly and the Ratchet collections on Vita work flawlessly. And actually, I wanted to do a playthrough of Sly 2. The other, I think, how long do I want to do it? It was around the same time that I did the playthrough of Crack in Time. I was kind of in the mood to go on a bit of a PS2 nostalgia trip. So I booted up Sly 2 on PCSX2. My PS2 emulator on PC, and I don't know whether or not it was PCSX2 or whether I just kind of had my fill and then just kind of was not interested in playing it anymore. I did the first level and I was just kind of like, okay, I'm satisfied, you know. And what sucks is that that reaction, I don't feel really represents how good that game is, because that game is fantastic. And all the Sly games, with probably the exception of the first one, because the first one's a little... you know, first one's a little bit like, you know, the first Ratchet and Clank game, you know. Could be, they're working out the kinks. You know, they're working out the kinks. And I think with that, when you're working out the kinks or something like that, it's going to take you a game to get it right, in the same way that with the original Uncharted, right? If you go back and play the PS3 version of the original Uncharted, there are a few things in it that, control-wise, that were rectified the further on you get in the series. You get to Uncharted 2 and Uncharted 3, and the controls are a lot better, and it moves more fluidly, and it just, as a game, is a much more cohesive unit. Whereas, now, they did obviously make changes in Uncharted 1 for the Uncharted Nathan Drake collection to match it more with the control system of Uncharted 3. And I think I didn't really notice, to be honest, when I was playing it. It felt pretty much exactly the same to me when I went back and played Uncharted 1 on PS4. But I mean, I could be wrong. Oh, that was a weird feeling. I could be wrong. What's unfortunate is I don't have PS3 copies of the original Uncharted games anymore, which actually I should get for my collection just to have. Because it'd be quite cool. But it's funny. My collection, I love my collection. I'm very, very proud of what I've been able to collect so far, especially in a country that has no real secondhand retro market. But what's so funny about it is I kind of don't realize what games I wish I had until I think of them. Like, it'd be awesome to have PS3 copies of all the original Uncharted. You know, not in a platinum, not in a greatest hits case. In like,
Dangerous?
you know, in a proper,
Actually, yes, it is.
Good.
Take a look at this.
in a proper, you know, in the proper original packaging. Might try it in Japan. Actually, the Uncharted box art, the Japanese box art could actually be really awesome for Uncharted. Uncharted 2 looks pretty interesting. Oh wow, the Vita version of Golden Abyss looks really cool actually. Uncharted 4 looks the same. Uncharted 3 looks cool. Where's Uncharted 1? Okay, Uncharted 1's the same. But the Uncharted 2 one is very different. Oh my god. That is greatly, greatly, greatly different. But it'd be interesting actually to see if I find Uncharted 2. I wonder if someone's got a picture of the back of the box. Because it'd be interesting, given that it's an American game, would you think that it was playable in English? You would have to think, right? Part of you would probably sit there and go, it would make sense if it was playable in English. Because I've got a couple of Japanese PS3 games in my collection. One of which, by the way, is very expensive. And I did not realize how expensive it was until I got home and looked it up on eBay and Amazon. I'll explain that game in a minute, but I was really surprised to see that some of those Japanese games are fully playable in English. And I feel, I'm not really sure if it's the case now, but I feel more so now, it'd be more of an inclination to make Japanese games that are sold in Japan playable in English because of the whole thing about region locking. All the consoles now are region unlocked, so there's probably more of a precedent or a pressure on the developer to just make the Japanese version of the game playable with English. I mean, they only have to do it in 2 languages, which Japanese and English. Now, of course, that does mean... Well, actually, no. I was thinking that would mean that you would need to do all new voice acting for English actors, but actually not really, because there's a lot of JRPGs that I have where it's still in Japanese, the voice acting and all that. They just have English subtitles, which I have no problem with. Actually, one game that I'd really love to play is Valkyria Chronicles 3, because I'm a massive fan of the Valkyria Chronicles series, and Valkyria Chronicles 3 never came to... never was released outside of Europe, and actually, that is a game... I only have a couple PSP games in my collection, but that is definitely a game that I absolutely am going to try to get in my collection when I go to Japan. To have a proper copy of Valkyria Chronicles 3 would be awesome. And I'd probably get copies of... I'll probably get a copy of Valkyria Chronicles 2 as well, because I currently have a copy of... I currently have Valkyria Chronicles on PC, Switch, PS3 and PS4, and of course I have the PS3 and PS4 physical editions. Of course, PC and Switch didn't get physical releases. However, maybe there was a physical release for Valkyria Chronicles in Japan, because I know in Japan especially, physical releases are a lot more of a thing for stuff like the Vita and the Switch than they are over here. So it'd actually be very interesting to see if in Japan they got a physical release of Valkyria Chronicles, because if they did on Switch, I'm definitely picking that up. Wow, all these... As you can tell, I'm now starting to dream a massive dream about some of the games I want to pick up in Japan. And these, and in all fairness, I had not thought about these ones. Only now have I started to think about them. But, you know, that's just... Gaming is awesome in that regard, because there's just so much that's there. You know, and there's something for everybody as well. I just happen to be a guy who likes a lot of different genres, and you know, I happen to like a lot of different genres, and I happen to like a lot of different types of games. So in that regard, I'm quite lucky. And I also happen to own a large number of consoles that allows me to play those games. But yeah, moments like these where you kind of go to yourself, gaming is fucking dope, you know? Gaming is dope. I wonder what Valkyria... Let's have a quick search. Valkyria Chronicles Switch physical. Did they get one in Japan? That's the question that I have. I can't see. Or at least this article that I'm reading doesn't necessarily say either way, but there is. Oh. But Valkyria Chronicles, actually, speaking of Valkyria Chronicles, I loved the first game, and I loved playing... Valkyria Chronicles 4 I loved. Loved Valkyria Chronicles 4. I actually thought Valkyria Chronicles 4 was easier than the original Valkyria Chronicles, which is interesting because I remember getting stuck a lot on the original Valkyria Chronicles, but I also think it was they probably made it easier, and this is probably the Western influence, which I think really annoys me. They probably only made it easier Um, they probably made it easier because of how much of a cult classic it became in the West. I think had Valkyria Chronicles 4 not been a success, I think if the original Valkyria Chronicles had not found the cult following in the United States that it had, then I don't think they would have localized it or made it a little easier. But that's just a theory. I'm not 100% sure on that, and it'd be really disappointing if that was the case. Because even though I enjoyed Valkyria Chronicles 4 a lot, I love the story. I particularly like the story of the Valkyria Chronicles games. That's really what I play them for. But I did think to myself that Valkyria Chronicles 4, compared to the original, was quite a lot easier. And I think... But it also, I suppose, it probably was easier because I had played Valkyria Chronicles 1 and I kind of now knew and understood how to play the game. That's probably why it became easier. It probably wasn't, you know, easier for any other reason other than that. Really. You have to think about it for like more than 3 seconds. I don't know. Again, it's all just theories. I have really no idea. But yeah, I really hope... No, I didn't want to exit the arena. I really hope they didn't make it easier just to appeal more to Western audiences. That'd be a massive disappointment in my opinion. So that's kind of why I'm excited to play Valkyria Chronicles. Yeah, it's kind of why I'm really excited to play Valkyria Chronicles 3 for the first time, because I really want to see what that game's all about. The only problem is I'd need to patch it. I think there is... From what I understand, there is actually an official fan patch. So, I would be able to do it, but I'm not sure if you need custom firmware or not. So, I would need to check it out, but yeah, that's definitely something that I want to try and get whilst I'm in Japan. And also, a copy of VC2 as well. That'd be great additions for my collection. Kind of complete a Valkyria Chronicles collection, even if half of them are in Japanese. I'd be a pretty happy boy. I'd be a pretty happy boy. What's so funny is the more I think about it, there are so many games going to Japan that I'm like, if I got those, I'd be a pretty happy boy. Even now, in my mind, I'm just going, oof. If I come back with even just half of the stuff that I want, I will be a very happy boy. Very happy boy. But, you know, speaking of Japanese games, I mentioned that there was one that I've got, a PS3 one, which is quite expensive. And I didn't realize this. And this is the funny thing about collecting, is obviously I've mentioned many a time before that, you know, New Zealand doesn't really have a second-hand market. This was probably the only time New Zealand has really come through for me in the sense of providing me with a quote-unquote expensive game. And like one that is properly expensive, not just in New Zealand, but all throughout the world as well. And when I saw this, I couldn't fully believe it. So I was in a Salvation Army Family Store. And I kind of started checking those. I think at the time I was probably only maybe like my third or fourth time. Might have even been it was like my third or fourth time in a Salvation Army Family Store, but I think it was my first time in that particular one. So anyway, I walk in and I see, what did I say? I think I saw an Armored Core 4, Dynasty Warriors 6, which they called Dynasty Warriors 5 in Japan for some bizarre reason. And I saw this other game. And it was called Railfan. And it was a train simulator. And for me, I was drawn to it because there was a PS2 game that I used to play as a kid called Extreme Express. Which massive nostalgia on my part. I love that game. Didn't so much when I was a kid because my sister always used to beat me in it. Now I think if we played it, I think I'd kick her ass, but... So I picked it up thinking, oh, you know, cool, it'll be like that game, Extreme Express. Boy, was I wrong. It's a train, it's a proper train simulation game in which you have to go between stations and pick up passengers, and you can go view different parts of Chicago and Japan and all this different stuff. And I paid $8 for it. Thought, oh, why not? Like, it's cheaper than most PS3 games you find at EB Games. So I picked it up, brought it home, played it, managed to navigate my way through the menus. And then I got to... I wanted to make a video on my YouTube channel talking about some of the more rarer games in my collection. And, a video like that's difficult to make here in New Zealand because the definition of a rare game is slightly different, obviously. What might be rare in New Zealand is probably fairly common in other parts of the world. For example, I'll give an example. The Simpsons game on PS3, 360, etc., etc. The PS3 version, or just any version of that game in general, is incredibly difficult to find here in New Zealand. It's very hard to find, and you can very rarely find it. I was lucky one day at EB Games, I found it on PS3, picked it up, I think. And I also have a copy of it on PSP as well. But it's a very rare game to come across here in New Zealand. But if I go to the States, I'm sure I could probably find heaps of copies of that game. I'm sure it's not nearly as rare, across the world as what it is now. Or at least here in New Zealand. Another example is Family Guy Back to the Multiverse. When I had wanted that game for a while, after it came out, couldn't find it for ages. And then found it one day at an EB Games, got it, brought it home, thought the game was great, platinumed it. But, I'm sure if I go to other places in the world, I'm sure that game probably nowhere near as expensive as what it is here. That games can still go for $50 here in New Zealand. Which, for a PS3 game, $50. The only other game that I've seen go for more than that is, I think it's Demon's Souls. Because apparently that's quite rare. I would have no point of reference because I'm not really a Souls fan. But apparently Demon's Souls is quite an expensive game. And very rare to come across. And part of me's wanted to pick it up occasionally for just the rarity of it. So, for me, finding quote-unquote a rare game in New Zealand is always awesome, but for the most part, there's quite a few that fall into that category that I'm sure if I went out in New Zealand wouldn't be that rare. So anyway, back to Railfan. So I wanted to make a video on my YouTube channel about quote-unquote rare games that I have in my collection. Again, rare's relative.
Congratulations on winning the mega challenge
So out of curiosity, I just decided to look up
and win the prize.
how much all the Japanese games that I had gotten were. And I think, you know, Dynasty Warriors was like 20. Armored Core was like the same. So in those cases, I'd got a deal. You know, and quite a decent one at that. And then I looked up the price of Railfan and was quite surprised. This is probably the rarest game I have in my collection, I'm not even joking. If you go on eBay, the cheapest I've seen this game is about 150 bucks. I'm not even joking. And when I saw that and realized that I had paid $8, I looked at myself and went, holy shit. I just got the deal of a fucking century. Now, I have no plans to sell this game because I'm not really a guy who likes to sell games. And I have actually played the game and I quite enjoy it. But when I saw that, I was like, just endless. By the way, I could, in my peripheral vision, have a semi-reasonable idea of what I was doing on screen, which is quite funny. But yeah, when I saw that price, I was like, holy crap, I could sell this and buy like 10 games. I don't know, I haven't checked the prices recently. I think the last time I checked the prices was a couple months ago. I don't know how much the game's going for now. I don't really want to know how much it is, because it's one of those things where I think if I got tempted, I would probably end up selling it. But I also, it's one of those things where, yes, it goes for 150 bucks on eBay, but or at least it's listed for 150 bucks on eBay. The question more is, do they sell for 150 bucks on eBay? And I don't really know because I haven't looked at like closed listings, but from what I understand, I mean, some have sold for at least over 100 bucks, and I was like, holy crap. That is a lot of money for a PS3 game. Especially one that I got in a Salvo family store for $8. I felt very lucky that day. I felt very lucky. And that really was the proof to me that I could get some decent game collecting deals here in New Zealand. They may not come all the time, but the possibilities are there. They're out there. It just takes a little bit of time. That's kind of what I realized. But yeah, man, holy shit. When I saw that, actually, let's, on an aside, let's go have a look. Go to eBay. Oh god, I don't even want to see these. Video games. Holy shit. Can I choose like ones that completed items? Alright, so the last, holy crap. The last one to sell went for 113, went for 150 bucks. The one before that went for 150 bucks. The one before that went for $120. And the one before that went for $290, but that, oh, actually, no, that was about $320, but that was with the other Railfan game as well, which I've got the Chicago Brown Line Train Simulator, and there's another one which is the Taiwan High Speed Rail. One. So, Jesus Christ. It really does show that, you know, you can really come across some good shit if you just look. But I was really surprised when I saw that. I was like, holy crap. Even now, thinking about it, it's like, Jesus Christ. It's just nuts to think that I'm just a small, dinky little collector in New Zealand, and I own this fairly rare, you know, expensive game. And, you know, you might think, well, fuck, that's not really that expensive. Earthbound's $600, but bear in mind, we're talking about PlayStation 3 here. You know, PlayStation 3 games are not yet at the point of being that expensive for the majority. I mean, I'm sure some are, but not for the majority. No way, not at that price. No way. So, anyway, that's my little story. I hope you enjoyed. It's got absolutely nothing to do with the game we're playing or whatever, but I feel with something like this, you know, chat can be about everything but Ratchet and Clank, because, I mean, this game is so old. I'm about to die here. It'll be our first death. Oh, a few more shots, and dead. Beautiful. Yeah, it has absolutely nothing to do with the game, but you know, if you're new to this channel, we bant a lot here about random things. So, you know, that's just par for the course here on this channel.
See you later.
You know? But it's a lot of fun. We have fun here. We have fun here. We have fun more than anything. That's our main goal here. We have fun. My throat is really sore. I'm honestly at the point. I've done a lot of talking today. I spent 2 hours in this meeting basically non-stop talking.
Hey, this would make a nice souvenir for Clank.
And now I've spent, what, the past hour and 10 minutes straight just chatting to you guys like a madman. But, you know, that's what streaming's all about, my friends. You've got to... It's all about entertaining. And I am here for you guys to entertain you lovely, fine people. In a slightly more unrelated topic, moving away from gaming a little bit, I don't know if any of you guys out there are all-time low fans. All-time Low, one of my favorite bands, today announced that they are doing a fully re-recorded version of their album Nothing Personal, in honor of it turning 10 years old. Which I'm really excited about, because I've actually been listening to that album a lot recently to get inspiration for the EP that me and my band are writing. I've been listening to that album a lot. It's been quite an inspirational album to me recently, both on a lyrical and musical point of view. And to hear that, it's something that I always wanted. I always feel that, especially if I kind of always feel that if an artist's voice has like deepened or changed since an album was recorded, that they should go back and re-record it to make it fit in with rest. That's something I would do as an artist. Like, if my band, if our lead singer, Anne, you know,
Map, press select.
I'm sure female voices are probably less susceptible to this, but, you know, for example, I would love to see Blink re-record, you know, Enema of the State and Take Off Your Pants and Jacket, or the Untitled album, with the way that Tom sounds now, because we all know that Mark sounds exactly the same, and he has for years.
To center the camera, tap L1.
I think that probably annoys me quite a bit, is just the fact that Mark sounds exactly the same. Really. The only album that he sounds blatantly different on is Dude Ranch, because obviously he sings that chorus in Damn It, which of course he doesn't sing live. Now, if you know the story behind that, it's because when he sung the chorus to Damn It back in the day, he actually wrecked his voice singing it. Because the chorus is so unnatural. The way he sings the chorus is so unnatural to him that after he sung the chorus, his voice was wrecked for like 3 days or something. So that's why Tom live sings the Damn It chorus, because Mark's voice just can't do it live anymore. But, you know, Mark's voice really hasn't changed. Let's be honest. His voice is pretty much exactly the same as it always has been. So it'd really only be Tom. But I would love to see him, I suppose even now that, you know, his voice has changed a little bit since Dreamwalker, which was the last music that he put out before this new Angels single, Rebel Girl. Even that, you know, his voice is a little bit different as well. So it'd be interesting to get him to re-record all his parts to, you know, Enema, Take Off Your Pants and Jacket, the Untitled record. You know, the Mark, Tom, and Travis show.
To zoom in with the pulse rifle, hold L1.
That'll be interesting albums to
To zoom out,
get the old re-record on.
and press R2.
But yeah, you don't need to do Tom's parts. You wouldn't have to do Mark's parts because Mark sounds exactly the same. But you know, saying that, that's not bad on Mark's part by any stretch of the imagination. You know, his voice just, you know, if anything, it's probably good that his voice has stayed the same, because I think a lot of people would argue that with Tom's voice, they prefer old Tom's voice, but I'm just a Tom DeLonge fanboy to the point where I'm not going to criticize the man because I love him. I want Tom DeLonge to make sweet love to me. And if that makes me gay, I don't care. Well, it would make me gay. If I'm having sweet love with a man, I'm gay. There's very few people that I would be gay for. Tom DeLonge is one of them. Tom DeLonge is probably the only man I'd be gay for. Because otherwise, I'm not a fan of a penis. The glorious ability to kill enemies with their own counterparts. Gone, gone. Meow. 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 And we'll drop him. Now, I should address this. We are not... Oh, I didn't blow that door up. We are not going to be doing full titanium bolts or platinum bolts, whichever one this game has. We're not going to be doing, you know, a run for those. We're not going to be doing a skill point run. Anything like that. We're just going to be playing the game as per usual. But I will do as many of the arena challenges as possible. I will do as many of the hoverbike races as possible. There is a level to which I will go in terms of how much I complete this game. But it's not going to be a full 100% completion run that we did for Monsters Inc. Scare Island. If you guys remember that, we obviously did a full series over on my YouTube channel for that game, and then we kind of streamed getting 100%. I think that's probably the only game so far that I've played for content creation or on YouTube or Twitch that I've done to 100%. But yeah, we will not be doing this game to 100%.
Clank?
And the reason for that is just because,
Move. I'm coming down.
you know, I want to ensure that we get through, you know, if you are new here, you know, I'm a variety streamer, so I'd like to try and get through as many games as possible for you guys so that everybody gets a little bit of what they like. And, yeah. Yeah, I have nothing more to say about that.
Final digit of pi is Clank.
Oh, I will say this, if you were watching,
Where
I
must have dozed off.
if you were watching the stream last night, you'll know we were playing Train Simulator, and we're having a few issues there on the old Train Simulator. Having a lot of fun. We were having a problem with one of the trains as we were setting off. It just didn't seem to work. Now, a viewer in the chat afterwards tried it out to see if there was an issue, and we discovered that there was an issue. So, no idea fully exactly what the hell was going on. But what I can tell you is that if you do want to see more Train Simulator, we will be doing it soon, or at some point in the future. I'm just going to spend a little bit more time with the game, get better at it, and then we might do a proper series on it. But first impressions of it were not great. You know, and what's ironic is I wanted to play that game for years, ever since I saw New Cube play it. What's also ironic is I would genuinely thought I would have crashed the car. Oh, sorry, the train, not the car. I genuinely thought I was going to crash the train. Because obviously, if you've watched my Euro Truck Simulator streams, me and objects, you know, vehicles like said trucks and trains tend to be vehicles in which I easily crash. Ones where I probably drive far faster than what I should. Surprisingly, we didn't crash the train.
Nothing to it.
But it's coming.
Let's go get that
A train crash is a coming. It's just a case of when, not if. Yeah, we finally get fucking helipacks back. Oh, actually, I'll tell you something. There was a great episode of, oh, what's the name of the show? Boundary, I want to say it was, oh, there's a YouTuber, and he makes this great show where he goes beyond the boundaries of the game worlds, and he did it for the original Ratchet and Clank, and it was very interesting actually to see some of the tricks that they did to get certain elements of this game to work in the way it does. For example, these arms, these helipad arms that come out of Clank on the side of left and right, are actually hidden in his body, but are like really small. And then when they need to be used, the code just scales them up, which I thought was really fascinating. It's actually a great series. Hold on, I think it's called Boundary Break. I'm not 100% sure. If you guys know in the chat, let me know, but I will just check. Yeah, Boundary Break. Yeah, Boundary Break. Yeah, Off-Camera Secrets, Boundary Break, Ratchet and Clank. And you'll learn some fascinating stuff. Absolutely fascinating stuff about some of the tips and, you know, some of the tricks that they did to make certain aspects of the game work. And there's another great thing about that series is for some of the episodes he does get developers who did work on the game to explain certain stuff. He does one for Simpsons Hit and Run. He does a lot of Nintendo games as well. So yeah, go check him out if you're interested in that kind of stuff. I know I am, because, you know, I'm a little bit into video game development, and stuff like that is just fascinating. I think anyone who's really into video games kind of has a curiosity to some of the tips and tricks that go into making the games work and tick. You know, and I did always think that was really interesting. So I think for me, something I'd really like to know, and if I ever had the opportunity to interview a dev, this is probably one of the first questions I want to ask, is how do they map out, like if you've got something like a Skyrim or a Fallout 76, you know, a really big game, or even a game like this where there is, you know, a relatively decent sized complex map, how do they map it out? You know, how do they design it? How do they go about designing it? How do they know where to, you know, place rocks? How do they know where to put waterfalls? How do they know where to add, you know, elevation, you know, contours in the land, etc., etc.? Like, how do they decide where to put all this stuff? You know, that to me is always fascinating. As a fan of video games, that idea, finding out that, has always really fascinated me, and it's made me very, very curious. So, if there are any developers watching this who would, you know, like to answer, you know, questions, even like how do you guys decide how an environment's gonna look, how it's gonna feel, you know, what the layout of the environment's gonna be, the layout of a level. You know, how do you know? Like, how do you come up with that? How do you design that? Do you start with a blank canvas? Do you brainstorm some ideas on certain, you know, ideas you'd like to have, or certain levels you'd like to have? Like, that'd be fascinating to me. But then again, I am a bit of a geek in that regard, so, you know. And proud of it too. I don't mind being a geek. Quite happy to be a geek. I like to consider myself not only a geek, I call myself a nerdy geek, because I like to refer to myself as both a nerd and a geek. Oh shit. Nearly dead, but we made it. Over there. Can I zoom in on it? Yep, right there. That's Ratchet's apartment. Or what will become his apartment at the beginning of Ratchet and Clank 3. Wow! Cameo!
Hey, my old swing shot and grind boots.
A really on-the-nose cameo.
Try customizing your quick select in the pause menu.
Actually, that's a question. If you guys enjoy
Search other planets for available available missions.
this Ratchet and Clank 2 stream. We're also going to do one series for Ratchet and Clank 3. If you guys do enjoy it, let me know, because I do want to do, now that I've got physical copies of Jak 2 and Jak 3 on PS4, let me know if you'd like to see me do playthroughs of both those games, because I'm quite happy, because I do plan on playing them now that I got physical copies of them. But yeah. So anyway, guys, we're going to leave it there. A little bit of a shorter stream tonight, just because we're a little bit late. Wednesday night, I'm almost certain we'll be back at regular time. And then Friday will probably be a little late again, because again, I got another meeting. Unfortunately, these were things that I had no choice on. So yeah, sorry about that, guys. We'll go to Facecam. So yeah. Hope you enjoyed this. Please do let me know if you in the Discord or in the chat or whatever, if you are liking this, because I do want to do one for Ratchet and Clank 3 as well. And if you'd like to see me do one for maybe Sly 2, Sly 3, Jak 2, Jak 3, even the original Ratchet and Clank, the original Jak, the original Sly, quite happy to do so. I do like that trifecta of PS2 platformers. I'm a big fan of those series, so I'd really like, if possible, I would love to do stream series for all of them, but that's up to you guys. If you guys really enjoy it, then I will do it. I'm all but too happy to do it, so let me know in the Discord or in the comments or in the chat or whatever, wherever you find places to communicate with me these days. Anyway, guys, thank you to everyone who watched along with me live. Thank you to everyone who chatted, followed, all that good stuff. I will see you on Wednesday night at 3 in the afternoon, New Zealand time. Not 7, 3. But until next time, guys, I shall see you later. Farewell.